Right, so we've hit the road from Canberra to a place that is home to Australia's largest gliding mammal, one of our most unique native animals, and unfortunately, they're an endangered species, with the population having declined by up to 80% over just the past 20 years. This afternoon, we're taking you to Talaganda State Forest, a crucial home for the greater glider. On breakfast, you might have heard Ross talking to Courtney Bright about a trail run event tomorrow through the forest as part of a community campaign to convert the forest into a protected national park. This afternoon, we're joined by Christina Steele, botanist, ecologist, forest walker and resident of Captain's Flat near Talaganda, and also Ilea Buffer, who is participating in tomorrow's event and also grew up in the region. First to you, Christina. Yumma and welcome. Thank you so much for being with us this afternoon.
Thank you so much for having me, Adrienne.
I loved hearing the sounds of the forest. Take us to the forest, where it is and just how significant it is.
Talaganda is an absolutely incredible place. It lies between Captain's Flat and Braidwood. It is an exceptional forest. It has its own little microclimate, so it's got these pockets of wet sclerophyll forest, kind of rainforesty areas filled with tree ferns. It's got these towering ancient trees. It has some very unique flora, including some threatened orchids, as well as the greater glider. It's an extraordinary forest.
Yeah, I can hear the love that you have for it, Christina.
Yeah, I'm there just constantly. It's actually why I bought my house in Captain's Flat. It was the main draw card for me to come to this region.
Now, you wear so many hats. You're also a volunteer firefighter, and you were here during the Black Summer fires. Can you describe to me what happened for this important habitat and forest during that period, and also how that recovery is going from that disaster?
Yeah. So it burned pretty extensively, mainly through the national park, but in some areas of the state forest as well. The North Black Range fire particularly took out a lot of the northern part of Talaganda National Park. I was actually out there yesterday just checking on the recovery. It is recovering, but it's going to be decades really until the forest is back to what it used to be. And there are still sections where it's really badly impacted. It started out quite a low and slow fire the first couple of days. But as you know, at that point in the Black Summer, we were in a pretty intense drought. It was really, really dry and really awful. And it didn't take long before that fire got massive. And it took out a lot of forest. And the southern portion of Talaganda was affected as well with the Snowball and Jindan fires. And there's not a lot of national park areas in Talaganda that aren't affected. So that central portion where the run's taking place tomorrow is really integral.
Yeah, so as well as the threatening process of major disasters like fires, there's also other ways that forest is being impacted, in particular through forestry. What have been your observations as someone who regularly visits that area, walking, and also as a volunteer firefighter?
Yeah, look, where there's been forestry activity, it's not, in my opinion, been super well managed. I'll leave that to people that know a little bit more about that than me. But there's certainly a lot of debris left behind. There's a lot of destruction, a lot of really huge trees taken out. I see the logging trucks come through Captain's Flat pretty regularly with some very large trees on board. And yeah, just the amount of debris and destruction left behind is pretty heartbreaking.
And so at the centre of all this, I suppose, are the threatened and endangered and vulnerable species like the greater glider. What have you learnt about them as part of your profession as a consultant working in the region and a regular visitor to the forest? Where are they living?
They are living in huge old trees. They need those big trees. I think particularly trees over 20 or 30 meters. I'm not as well versed. I'm a botanist. I'm not as well versed in the greater glider as some of the endangered orchids that actually thrive in that area as well. But I do know they need those big trees, and it's one of the last strongholds for them. And if we take that out, it's contributing to the fragmentation that's just causing a massive decline in their habitat.
So what's your sense of just how scarce those remaining old trees are in that landscape, providing those dens, that habitat for the possum?
Within Talaganda, there's lots if they leave them alone. Outside of Talaganda, there's almost none. I mean, there's farming region on either end. or either side of the forest. Where I live it was an old mining region. There aren't many large trees left, unfortunately. There's a couple scattered here and there, but they need dense forest, and Talaganda is really the last spot in the region.
And just how vulnerable is the greater glider right now? What do we know about its status?
That I'll leave to the greater glider ecologists, because I don't know enough to speak about that, I'm afraid.
But what's the situation when it comes to forestry at the moment? Of course, forestry provides critical jobs for many people living in regional areas. Forestry has been on and off and paused. The Environmental Protection Agency has been involved. Is forestry happening again in this area?
Yeah, unfortunately, plans are in place to start logging there again. There was a stop work last year, which was fantastic to see. I would love to see it put on pause, and there's so many other ways that those people could be used in the forest. There's other jobs to be done. Management of the forest is extensive, but unfortunately at the moment they're being used to log it. So this run tomorrow is really important. I'm going to be out there. I've volunteered to go and help on one of the trig points, and I'm hoping that people chuck a few bucks their way if they can, and if not, at least just spread some awareness of it.
Yeah, noting the importance for employment in regional areas at the moment, is there a way for forestry and logging to coexist with protecting those habitats? What's your perspective?
Maybe not logging, but forestry for sure, definitely. I mean, forests need management. They're not something we can just close off and ignore. They need to be managed. So those people could still be working within that forest without it being logged.
Now, citizen scientists have played a critical role in providing more information about this species, particularly in other jurisdictions, other parts of Australia. Just how powerful are sightings and geotagging by citizen scientists?
Oh, incredibly powerful. I mean, there's not enough scientists on the ground to log everything. And people out there are out there every day with their smartphones. You take a photo these days, it's got geotagging on it. You upload it to things like Nature Mapper, where I'm a moderator for Talaganda, or iNaturalist, and we have access to these fantastic resources. We can see where these things are being found. We had actually a really great sighting of 12 greater gliders on Main Range Road, which is also in Talaganda State Forest, just last year, an area that we didn't know they were there before. That was a citizen scientist, somebody that just happened to be out in the evening and managed to capture a photo of them. So it's so helpful, and I mean I use it every day at work. We check these records. People are checking these records. Government entities are checking these records.
Christina, thank you so much for being with us and telling us a little bit more about how you're involved, particularly as a resident of Captain's Flat and someone who visits the forest regularly. Also with